Good morning, and welcome to day 2 of the 23rd Annual Acquisition Research Symposium. We have another outstanding day planned. I'd like to take a moment and commend the researchers that are presenting their research. They are the center of gravity for this symposium. They are presenting their results through research papers and presentations because they are passionate about advancing the acquisition sciences field, so that senior leaders and policymakers can make informed decisions. It's not easy to share your research results. You open yourself up for criticism and debate, but without the benefit of this research, the success of the acquisition policy reform changes would be minimal. The Department of War will have a difficult time innovating and reforming defense acquisition to meet the evolving demands of our warfighters and keeping pace with the adaptive threat and fast-changing technology landscape. Using symposium research to inform policy change is innovative. It can make a difference for real, long-lasting results. And now I'd like to share some impressive numbers with you. Last October, the symposium panel selection committee reviewed 202 research proposals. 58 research papers were selected and presented at this symposium, and another 26 research papers were published as part of the symposium proceedings, for a total of 84 papers in 3 volumes and 1,240 pages of research. This symposium includes 96 presenters and speakers. All of these papers and presentations are added to the ARP DARE database and the body of acquisition knowledge. And now I'd like to welcome the NPS Vice Provost for Research and Innovation. We refer to him as Viper, Dr. Michael Hesse. He has an impressive resume. Prior to joining the NPS team, Dr. Hesse was the director of the Science Directorate at NASA Ames Research Center. He is a world-renowned physicist, researcher, and leader, spending over 25 years at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. Dr. Hesse, welcome, and over to you for day 2 opening remarks.
Good morning. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the second day of the Acquisition Accelerating Warfighting Capabilities NPS 23rd Annual Acquisition Research Symposium Innovation Summit. NPS has a long tradition of advancing defense-related science, engineering, and applied research. But technical advantage only matters if new capabilities can actually be acquired, fielded, sustained, and adapted in ways that meet operational and strategic needs. Among other things, that means at speed. This is why the acquisition system deserves serious academic attention. Those charged with reforming and modernizing the defense acquisition enterprise need more than intuition. They need research-backed evidence and insight to guide their decisions. This symposium is where research, policy, and operational practice come together. And that is exactly what it makes so valuable. The conversations, connections, and discoveries that take place here are not abstract. They're easily and directly relevant to how we deliver capability to the warfighter, and they're increasingly urgent. If we want to maintain a durable military advantage, we need both innovation, but we also need the ability to move that innovation into the hands of the warfighter at speed and at scale. That requires an acquisition system that is more agile, more responsive, and better informed. Today's session reflects exactly the kind of engagement this challenge demands: rigorous research, informed debate, and practical insight focused on real operational needs. I wish you a very inspiring and successful second symposium day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hesse. And now I have the privilege to introduce and welcome the Honorable Michael P. Duffey, the Undersecretary of War for Acquisition and Sustainment. For over 2 decades, the Honorable Duffey has served in roles including the Deputy Chief of Staff to the Secretary of War, Chief of Staff to the Undersecretary of War for Research and Engineering. An expert in engineering, policy, and procurement, I can think of no more qualified acquisition professional to lead the current acquisition transformation initiatives. Please accept this warm welcome, Honorable Duffey.
Thank you, Dr. Mortlock, and good morning to everybody for joining today, especially to all of you on the West Coast who got up extra early to partake in this important discussion about the future of our force. Let me start by saying how inspired I am by this year's agenda. You're hitting all the right notes, from putting the industrial base on a wartime footing to dedicated discussions on disruptive acquisition. Disruptive acquisition is exactly what we're doing at the Department of War, thanks to the leadership of President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, Deputy Secretary Feinberg, our acquisition professionals, and all of you. Disruptive and acquisition are rarely heard in the same breath. So why now? Right now, I believe we are living at an unprecedented time defined by the collision of 2 monumental forces that are reshaping our world. The first is the fast and furious, breathtaking pace of our adversaries' capabilities development. While we have spent years debating requirements, our adversaries have conducted hundreds of hypersonic weapons tests, nearly 10 times as many as the United States. While we publish acquisition strategies, they are building a modern naval fleet at a speed not seen since World War II. The starting gun for the 21st century arms race has already fired, and we are at risk of falling behind. The deliberate, methodical pace of our acquisition system is no longer a sign of American strength. It is a strategic vulnerability our adversaries are actively and aggressively exploiting. The second force is the single greatest explosion of private innovation the world has ever seen. Right now, a tidal wave of private capital is creating the future without us. Last year alone, private corporate investment in AI soared past $90 billion, a figure that dwarfs our own R&D budgets for similar technologies. Hundreds of billions in venture capital are fueling a technological revolution happening outside the secure fences of our military bases in fields from autonomy, quantum computing, commercial space, and synthetic biology. And here is the stark reality. Our acquisition system is a fortress built to keep that innovation out. It was designed to slowly and meticulously manage a handful of defense giants, not to rapidly harness a dynamic, decentralized ecosystem of innovators. We have convinced ourselves that the greatest risk is a failed test or a program that doesn't meet its every single one of thousands of requirements. We have institutionalized a culture where the fear of programmatic failure outweighs the urgency of the strategic threat. The result? We are being outpaced not by a lack of American innovation, but by a surplus of bureaucratic caution. We must transition from a culture that rewards process over outcomes to one that is singularly focused on speed and execution. We must shift from writing requirements to defining problems. We must empower acquisition leaders to make trade-offs on cost, schedule, and performance to get capability to the field on time. And we must embrace a new mantra. We will increase acquisition risk to decrease operational risk. An 85% solution delivered today is infinitely better than a 100% solution delivered too late. We must build the arsenal of freedom with acquisition agility. First, we must empower acquisition professionals. We will select leaders with grit and vision and regard them as mission commanders. We will give them lean, dedicated teams, budget authority, and the top cover to make rapid, informed decisions. We will tell our leaders, this is the warfighter's problem. Here are your authorities and resources. Go solve it. We trust you. Second, this future is built on a digital-first foundation. Every new program will live and breathe in a digital environment from day one. We will use digital engineering and advanced modeling to test thousands of designs before bending a single piece of metal. Our systems will be built on open architectures with software as easy to update as the apps on your phone. We will stop thinking in 10-year modernization cycles and begin thinking in 10-day software sprints. And finally, we will forge a true partnership with industry. On November 7th, Secretary Hegseth converted these concepts into a plan of action, rolling out his acquisition transformation strategy. This was not just another policy memo. It is a revolutionary vision designed to dismantle the slow, risk-averse bureaucracy of the past and build an acquisition system that delivers decisive capabilities at the speed of relevance. The strategy outlines 38 bold initiatives in 5 pillars to accelerate this revolution. 1, rebuild the industrial base. 2, empower our acquisition workforce. 3, streamline our brittle processes. 4, prioritize technical excellence. And 5, resource system sustainment. On November 7th, my team immediately moved out to implement this strategy. We are leveling the playing field for traditional industry partners and new entrants. Under the leadership of Deputy Secretary of War Feinberg, the department is increasing private capital investment by stabilizing demand signals through longer-term contracts. In recent months, we announced deals with Lockheed Martin and RTX to double, triple, and even quadruple the production rate of our most critical munitions, including the Patriot PAC-3, THAAD, Tomahawk, AMRAAM, and Standard Missile variants. As part of these historic deals, the companies have agreed to invest $25 billion of their own capital, just as many of our most innovative startups are already doing, to expand their production capacity, grow their workforce, and strengthen their supply chain. By empowering our workforce, we announced that we would transition program executive officers into portfolio acquisition executives, that are known as PAEs. These leaders are empowered with much-needed flexible authorities to trade requirements. They will lead teams of experts accountable to a single leader to aggressively prioritize schedule and rapidly develop, procure, and deliver capabilities for the warfighters. As of today, across the services, 23 PAEs have already been established and are actively implementing this new model for acquisition. In streamlining the process, we are engaging in the most ambitious revamping of the FAR and DFARs in recent memory. We've already issued 41 class deviations, lowering administrative burden and accelerating contracting to make it easier for companies, especially small businesses, to work with the department. In prioritizing technical excellence, Deputy Secretary Feinberg and EDU Director George Kolotidis instituted the Business Operators for National Defense, or BOND program, identifying and recruiting world-class experts in manufacturing, supply chain, IT, and industrial engineering. These executives bring deep expertise and proven track records from companies in the automotive, aviation, and other commercial industries such as GM, Ford, Tesla, FedEx, and many others at the cutting edge of modern manufacturing and production. These seasoned experts are engaging directly with our program teams, our industry partners, and department leaders, walking the factory floor, instituting best practices of modern manufacturing, and applying their decades of experience and expertise to rapidly and radically improve the velocity, volume, and efficiency of our defense industrial base. Emerging from these efforts are focused initiatives to accelerate the qualification and certification processes to bring new vendors and competitors into the industrial base more quickly, maximizing our access to innovative solutions and increasing the benefits of competition to accelerate schedule and maximize quality while managing cost. In addition to our acquisition transformation initiatives, we are working closely with the Joint Staff to replace the canceled JSIDS process, prioritizing speed and flexibility to better leverage the creativity and efficiency of industry to generate new, more capable, more cost-effective solutions in a timely manner. Instead of handing industry a 500-page technical document that took years to develop and presumes we know the answer, We will present the warfighter's problem and challenge the brightest minds across our nation to solve it. If we hope to achieve all of this, we must create a culture that celebrates intelligent risk-taking. That means more prototypes that don't work and more tests that fail spectacularly. Why? Because a failed prototype is not a wasted effort. It's tuition paid on the path to success. It's a lesson learned faster and cheaper than if we had waited 5 years for the perfectly engineered first article to ensure we passed the first test. We must test, learn, fail, and learn again faster than anyone else on the planet. All of this much-needed change will not come easy. It will take time to shift the mindset and culture of our workforce. Many of you know this because you are directly involved in these actions. A strategy from the E-ring is nothing without the people who turn it into reality. Which brings me to the most important part of this transformation: the acquisition professionals in our government workforce and the skilled labor of our defense industrial base. The acquisition transformation strategy is the what. Our people are the how. It is the leaders and innovators in our workforce that will drive this cultural shift towards wartime urgency. We must achieve these ambitious goals through a grassroots movement, driving change not from the top, but throughout our enterprise and our community. So as talented and respected thought leaders and technical experts in our defense ecosystem, I'm asking for your assistance to be bold. We need your help to challenge the status quo, and I'm counting on your cooperation to help lead the transformation. This revolution will happen person by person, program by program, and decision by decision. It will be led by the engineer who designs for modularity, the contracting officer who finds a creative way to partner with a startup, and the program manager who defends their team for taking a smart risk. Let's leave here today with a renewed commitment to our nation and to the warriors who defend it. A commitment to slash the timelines, to break the bureaucracy, and to honor the courage of our warfighters with the urgency of our work. Let's build a system that doesn't just equip them to fight, but equips them to win at extraordinary speed. The future fights fast, and so must we. Thank you for your attention this morning and all that you do for the warfighter. I look forward to the discussion ahead.
Thank you very much, Honorable Duffey, for those inspiring remarks. And so you highlighted the transformation update and the transformation initiatives, and you rightfully called it disruptive acquisition because I think that's what we're trying to achieve. Can you highlight some of the challenges, if any, on any of those acquisition pillars? Like particularly some are probably need to be combined with change in law or statute or NDAAs. Are there any other challenges that might inhibit us from achieving those goals?
Absolutely. It's a great question. I think, first of all, I do think that we start in a good place in that the Congress over many years has been increasingly providing us the kinds of authorities that we need to implement this kind of change, which I believe brings us to the real challenge that we face, which is culture change. I think that we have tremendously patriotic workforce that has worked in a system that doesn't create the right incentives to motivate or to provide the flexibility to exercise maximum professional judgment to find the quickest path to deliver outcomes in a timely fashion. And I hope it is, and I mentioned this obviously in the remarks, that we can take advantage of this opportunity to break some of those traditions and those customs, champion risk takers among us who are taking smart risk and thinking about ways to break with convention to try and deliver results in a more timely fashion. Specifically with respect to your question about what kind of authorities might we still need to seek support from the Congress on, one that I know has been in the bloodstream for quite a while is the budget reform that was introduced by the PPVE Commission a few years ago. And I don't think that has been fully realized. And certainly as we're thinking about how do we want to empower acquisition leaders like the portfolio acquisition executives, I mentioned that we want to prioritize their ability to engage with the operational community to trade requirements that may be obstructing their ability to accelerate and to deliver the capability of the warfighter in a timely manner. I believe that we also are seeking the ability and the flexibility in partnership with Congress to create the ability to trade resources or to transfer resources, whether it's among accounts or projects, remove other constraints in such a way that the portfolio acquisition executives and the program managers and the frontline acquisition professionals who know day to day how the threat is evolving and how the new technologies are emerging that would present opportunity can apply the resources necessary to fully take advantage of emerging opportunity or to respond to emerging threat evolutions that would really give us the best, put us in the best position to deliver the best capability to the warfighter on time.
Thank you, sir. You also mentioned this cultural transformation within the acquisition workforce. So in my history, as a former Army program manager, we deal with that risk, the perception of a risk-averse culture. And we've been trying to break that for quite some time. I've heard over the years this, fail fast, fail early, and I think you said fail spectacularly. But from my experience, that usually didn't get folks promoted. And so, how do we change that culture, where really we are accepting failure when the whole culture is going usually observed going the other way?
It's an excellent question. I think it takes leadership, and I think it requires us to leaderships needs to demonstrate that they are putting their money where their mouth is on this. So when we find folks who take a risk and that risk is not that risk leads to a failure that we can learn from, and that was taken in the spirit of seeking to accelerate or improve how we do business, we need to ensure that we're championing that. I mean, I always think of the comparison of the old way NASA used to do business and how Elon Musk really accelerated the space launch capability by just testing and failing and testing and failing until his company was just about to go bankrupt, and he passed. And so, how do we create that celebration of failure that is one that's advancing our overall goal and is informing the acquisition workforce, the enterprise on those lessons we need to learn in order to deliver the best capability we can to the warfighter.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, that'll be quite some hurdle, but I think the workforce is trained and educated and motivated to accomplish this and achieve that transformation this time. One of the other big pillars is obviously the defense industrial base and our evolved teaming within industry. Can you speak to any evolving partnerships with industry, including, for example, the Deal Team initiatives or any Department of War investments in that respect?
Absolutely. Well, I think it was not a mistake that the first pillar in the acquisition transformation strategy was to rebuild our industrial base. There's clear recognition from department leadership that we're helpless to accomplish our mission without a great partnership with industry and the tremendous capability that industry provides. And that really initiated back when I was confirmed in this role last June. Within a few weeks, we convened a meeting with the munitions industrial base leadership of industry partner leaders, CEOs from RTX, Lockheed, Honeywell, Northrop, and many others, and started a conversation with the deputy secretary, the chairman, the vice chairman, seeking and getting a lot of feedback from industry on what was obstructing their ability to move quickly. That conversation evolved into a regular, oftentimes very direct conversation between the deputy secretary, myself, and CEOs on a regular basis, where we clearly stated what is our goal, what is our intent, and continuously received feedback from industry partners on what their capabilities were to accelerate and increase volume and scale production capacity. That resulted in the deals that I mentioned that were released in the early part of this year, where, for example, Lockheed Martin agreed to make billions of dollars of investments to triple the production of Patriot PAC-3, one of the absolutely most critical and most in-demand weapon systems, munitions that we have in our inventory. And it all came at I think, as a result of a trust building, the development of trust over time through these very direct and frequent conversations that the department leaders had with industry leaders, very clearly laying out what our needs were and what their obstacles were. And that really seeded also a lot of that thought in the acquisition transformation strategy about how do we remove some of the barriers that are getting in the way of doing business and accelerating across the board from industry's perspective and internal to our acquisition system. And the deal team has been absolutely incredible addition to our talent, our pool of talent here. We've got folks that come in from the financial community that can help bring a perspective that I think the department has not traditionally had to help us understand what is it that motivates industry leaders to pursue particular deals, to have the confidence necessary to make an investment, and to partner with industry in making those investments. One of the initiatives that we recently rolled out as part of the acquisition transformation strategy was going direct to suppliers and increasing the investment of private capital, two fundamental initiatives in our first pillar. I think that was best demonstrated in the recently announced $1 billion equity investment in L3Harris to rapidly accelerate the solid rocket motor production capacity to support the munitions industrial base and these ramps that resulted from these deals that we recently rolled out. And this was an opportunity for us to look at a supplier that was dominant in the marketplace. We're still pursuing and actively pursuing second sources so that we can reap the benefits of competition, but recognizing the speed by which we needed an increase in production capacity and a willingness on the part of L3Harris to make a significant multiple investment on our investment, multiple billions of dollars, that could get us the growth that we need at ultimately little or no cost to the taxpayer. Instead of traditionally pursuing a grant-based system to award a grant to industry in the hopes that they can convert that grant into the growth that we need, by pursuing an equity investment, we get a better deal for the taxpayer, and the industry partner has greater skin in the game, I think, and anytime they've got better skin in the game, they're going to be greater stewards of the investment of that dollar to actually produce the growth that we hope for in the production, in this case, of solid rocket motors. So there's really been a lot of activity thinking through, one of the other initiatives in our acquisition transformation strategy is the concept of commercial first. And I think oftentimes it's correctly interpreted. That means how do we source more material from commercial vendors and commercial product lines. I think it's not, it shouldn't be overlooked that we're also bringing commercial model to how the defense industrial base does business. And I think some of these examples are early wins for us to point to. And we're certainly looking for new applications of these models, whether it's the multi-year procurement deal that provided the long-term demand signal that gave industry the confidence they needed that they would get a return on that investment, that significant investment that they made. We're looking for how do we take that model and extend it beyond the munitions portfolio to other weapon systems where we could gain efficiencies. Industry and the department can gain from a deal that takes advantage of a more stable demand signal and the investment, the willingness of industry to make that investment, to expand that production capacity, accelerate the schedule for acquisition, and otherwise achieve much greater efficiency in how we produce for our warfighter.
Thank you, sir. And so there's a balance between what we've learned in the recent conflicts for a need for very low cost systems, and they're usually that infers commercial. And there's a balance between investing and putting that priority on that, but then also a balance between maintaining our really exquisite warfighting systems, missiles and jets and various platforms. So can you speak or can you share any perspectives on your intent on how we balance those two priorities that are on us right now?
Absolutely. I think first concept here is I think we're increasingly recognizing that a hybrid fleet is critical. The exquisite weapons that we sell really can't be replaced, especially in certain scenarios. At the same time, affordable mass has significant value, especially when combined with the more exquisite weapon systems. And so I think a strategy to pursue both is absolutely essential to our success. And we are actively working with both new entrants and traditional defense companies who are exploring and developing and proposing low-cost alternatives to some of our weapons that might not have the full capability, as I mentioned in my remarks, and the Secretary has mentioned repeatedly. You know, an 85% solution now is better than a 100% solution too late, and you can think of that in the aggregate. If we have maybe a cruise missile that has a shorter range or a slower speed, but we can produce it much more quickly in much greater volumes to complement some of our exquisites like the Tomahawk, we have a very powerful hybrid magazine that I think can disorient the enemy, that can, in combination, both create distraction and the kind of defeat that we need.
Thank you, sir. There's also a balance between, with limited budgets, obviously, although it looks like we might be getting a little bit of relief from that next year. We'll see. But can you give us your perspectives on how we balance the need to maintain and sustain the current fleet of capabilities we have with the push for the next generation innovative exquisite systems? How do we balance that within the budget constraints?
Oh, it's always a challenge. I had a great conversation with the Chief of Naval Operations yesterday about that trade-off between procurement and sustainment. If we've got a weapon or a ship or another platform that's disabled due to maintenance, the cost and speed by which we could take that system from 0 to 1 is much more efficient than a new procurement. At the same time, of course, we need to keep our production lines going. And as we've seen with these deals, we're very intent on accelerating and ramping production to achieve the speed and volume that the Secretary and the President have sought. But balancing sustainment and balancing low-cost weapons and maintaining, I think there's another trade-off there that perhaps you were hinting at, which is we have tremendously exquisite and capable weapons that are second to none in the world. And yet technology is accelerating at such a pace that we need to ensure these weapons can continue to upgrade their capability to maintain maximum effectiveness on the battlefield. And so I think while we've locked in long-term contracts for all these, for Tomahawk and AMRAAM and Patriot and THAAD, I think we also need to be very aggressively and actively pursuing the next generation of upgrades to those weapons, and also, continuing to look at how competition in the long run, whether it's through low cost or competitive offering with some of the exquisite weapons, can maximize the benefit of competition for the warfighter, the department, and the taxpayer.
Thank you, sir. So we have about over 1,700 registered participants in this year's symposium, and the researchers are kind of your troops on the ground here. to help us help you and the department achieve the vision. Do you have any thoughts on how the acquisition researchers can help you? Types of research, for example, that you need us to look at over the next year, so that next year's acquisition research symposium we can help you and the other leaders realize the transformation initiatives better with informed research. Do you have any specific requests or areas that you'd like us to concentrate on?
Well, it's an excellent. First of all, let me just say I was truly inspired by the remarks at the beginning of the opening of the conference today about how you all are pursuing research-backed proposals for acquisition improvement. There is a necessity oftentimes in the department to rely on intuition, and having that research-backed set of insights, I think, would be tremendously helpful as we think through how to really take on an enormous challenge of transforming this huge enterprise. And so I think if I'm to think just aloud on things that are top of mind for us to be working through right now, one is, this acceleration of the qualification and certification process. I think this is a true barrier to how we maximize competition and discourages new entrants and non-traditional companies from entering into the marketplace. It has just an inherent protection of the incumbency, and I think really discourages innovation. Now, on the other hand, of course, it's absolutely essential that we ensure that what we're purchasing fits within the system for the reliability and quality and interoperability and all the other essential elements of any particular component or system. So finding the balance between how we accelerate that process without sacrificing the rigor that we would need in order to have the confidence and the safety record that we have with our weapon systems is critical. I would welcome insights that the community may be able to contribute on that. I think secondly, this concept of culture change may not be specific to acquisition, but it can be tailored to acquisition. And where are the barriers throughout the acquisition workforce to truly adopting a modern set of best practices, whether it's in manufacturing in the industrial base or resource management or requirements trade-offs? I think that, and I'll use that to segue to the third topic, what I was going to suggest, which is digitization. I think culture improvement and digitization of how we manage this enormous enterprise present tremendous production unlock opportunities. I find myself frustrated at how behind the department is when it comes to using modern information technology to manage these enormous processes and these enormous dollar amounts. And so, I'm eager to dig deeper on this topic and understand locally how program offices and portfolio acquisition executives and contracting officers, what tools they have and how they leverage digital technology to do their job better, and really to assess where we have opportunity to improve the application of information technology, not to mention artificial intelligence. I'm just talking about basic information technology that will manage day-to-day activity of our acquisition workforce, offload some of the administrative burden, and then also have the added benefit of giving leaders at every echelon of the enterprise levels of insight into the health of whether it's their own area of responsibility or how their own area of responsibility is performing against the enterprise and the health and the performance of our system, and having that in a touch, in a push button capability to get those insights and really see how we're doing, I think would be revolutionary in terms of improving the performance of our acquisition system. I think it was Peter Drucker that said, if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get managed. And I don't think we're doing a great job of measuring right now. And I think if we can improve that, and if your community has thoughts about how we could accelerate adoption of information technology and digital tools to really supercharge the performance of our acquisition system, we would be able to put that work to use, that work to use very quickly.
Thank you, sir. And we have a lot of questions in the Q&A. Some I'll have one here about it's generally recognized that small businesses are very innovative in this country and in the industrial base, and for the development of exquisite weapon systems, they're usually excluded. Do you have any thoughts on how we could, really encourage a greater participation from those smaller businesses and give them the foresight to stay with us, right, past that initial like SIBR kind of framework?
I have thoughts, certainly, and I know we've got a small business office that's dedicated to advancing the agenda for small businesses and increasing access and visibility on opportunities. I do believe that I'll kind of revert back to my comments on digitization. I think the supply chain and the industrial base could benefit from better digitization and use of tools that provide transparency to small businesses and other non-traditional companies that might not have the organic capability to understand. Like I like to say that sometimes the traditional defense companies, one of their core competencies is doing business with the Pentagon. And I think we ought to think about how do we make that less of a critical core competency and more democratization of how companies can have access to and understand what the demand signals are for the department and provide pathways to propose unique industry solutions that may be revolutionary for how the warfighter might be able to accomplish the mission. One of the initiatives in our acquisition transformation strategy is industry-driven solutions. And with the reset of JSID, or the cancellation of JSIDs, it's our hope that we would create a much more flexible requirement system where you might have industry providers, small businesses, who can bring new concepts to the table that are outside the traditional way of thinking on how we might achieve how we might satisfy a requirement. And so I think to the extent we can create better access, and I think digitization is a way to do that. In fact, we recently rolled out a platform called Links from our small business office that provides those levels of access to the department's need base, and it gives an opportunity for small businesses to register and make their capabilities known to the acquisition workforce. And so I think kind of exploring digital marketplace opportunities, some of which are coming online for the counter UAS fight that the JIADA 401 is leading. All these, I think, initiatives create opportunity and lower the burden and barrier for small business to offer their value to the defense industrial base.
Thank you very much, sir. We only have a few minutes left, and I really appreciate your comments. Do you have any closing remarks for the participants in the symposium this year?
I'm just grateful that you all have dedicated yourself not only this morning, but in your profession to help the warfighter accomplish, maintain advantage on the battlefield. I like to say, when folks ask me what's a measure of success, I think first measure of success is we win without fighting. Can we create the level of deterrence that the Secretary has called for that makes our adversaries think today is not the day? And that, a more precise measurement of that might be, how do you increase the hesitation of the adversary and increase the confidence of our men and women in uniform? And what are all the supporting measures that we can take to achieve that end so that we can truly win without fighting? And so I thank you for all the efforts you're contributing, whether it's as an organic member of the acquisition workforce, as somebody from the defense industry, or from an academic perspective. I'm really intrigued to see the work product that you all produce on where you see the challenges are and the opportunities are for us to take this moment that we have, this moment of change that is driven by a unification of leadership on both sides of the aisle, both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue, both sides of the river, that really want to see true change in the acquisition system, But we all recognize what an enormous opportunity and an enormous challenge it is. So to the extent that you have product capability, thoughts, research that contribute to this, I welcome it. I welcome you to share it with leaders across the services in my office. And I assure you, we will look for all opportunities to put it to work, because we've got a lot to change between now and when this is when we can truly declare success.
Thank you very much, sir, for those inspirational remarks, and put us in, Coach. The acquisition workforce, we're behind you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.